Hi, you made it to my channel, the Niche Gaming Hub. We continue with our Final Fantasy 1 playthrough. This is the PSP version, 20th Anniversary Edition. And the last one we prepared up to Marsh Cave, and in this installment, we're going to complete the Marsh Cave. Then the plot really picks up. We get the crown, which we need to entice Astos into a fight, who gives us the crystal eye that Matoya needs to be able to see. And then she gives us a Jolt Tonic as a reward, which is what the Elf Prince needs to wake up, and gives us the legendary Mystic Key, which is what we used to get all the loot we couldn't in the early game, which includes the key item we need to progress, Nitro Powder. I mean, this journey, it was very innovative. First time that this kind of thing happened. This is where that plot RPG role-playing game really is cool. When it first came out, of course, there weren't any walkthroughs and people had to figure out a lot of stuff. It wasn't always clear, and then you have to pay attention to all townsfolk and everything, but most of it's fairly self-explanatory. There's a concept of process of elimination, but still there is some trial and error, and of course sometimes there's some guessing game. But you can get all the information if you pay attention to what all the townsfolk, and then of course think a little bit. So this element was there, and you start to get some of it here. This develops in later episodes as well. But the journey in this episode helps our party significantly develop and prepare for our first crystal, which is part of the next episode. So get ready, we start with our main party, Warrior, Monk, Red Mage, and White Mage. And of course, once I complete the playthrough with them, that goes about to 43 minutes into the video. Then I start with the second party, which is the Warrior, Red Mage, White Mage, Black Mage. If you only want to see up to the playthroughs, you only have to watch the first 43 minutes. But if you want to see how I do it with the second party and the third party, and of course I speed up the parts with the second and third party. But here we go. Let's get started. Since the number of hits you do with a weapon for any of your characters, it doesn't increase until you hit the 32, 64, 96. Every 32 accuracy, you get an extra hit, or extra 2 hits if you're unarmed. And since we're talking about the Warrior, he already has 66 accuracy at this point, so he's already crossed that 64 threshold. So I'm going to get 3 hits whether I use a broadsword or the battle axe. So I might as well keep the battle axe on, because it hits with more attack power than the broadsword. Gargoyles are one of the toughest enemies you face in the Marsh Cave, especially if you come unprepared. For your weak defense parties, which is everyone except the Warrior and Red Mage at this point, you can get hit with up to 4 hits at a time for very large damage. The gargoyles are not weak to anything you have, you need to simply beat on them before they kill you, which should be easy if you leveled up properly, especially with this party. green slime are weak to fire and ice, and maybe bolt as well. I didn't bother giving the red mage the fire spell because this is the only enemy it would ever be useful for, otherwise his attacks are far more effective than one low fire spell. Blizzard is a little different, and I do have that, but even then I would still have to use 3 of them. So hitting them with a Fira is best here, if you face multiple ones. They can poison you, so you might as well get rid of them as soon as possible. If you face one of them with other type of enemies in a packs of other combinations, then maybe hit them with a blizzard from your red mage. You can attack them, but they have basically unlimited defense and your early attack weapons can't hit them for more than 1 damage per hit, unless you get a critical. Honestly, for the MP wasted on them, they're not worth it for the experience, so you don't want to face them very often. But when you do handle them with a Fira, you don't encounter them in packs very often at this early stage. This is another strong combination you face, particularly the Crawler and the Blood Bones. The Skeletons only damage your weak defense classes, and they can be a bit annoying. The Crawler also paralyzes along with its 8 hits, and the Blood Bones is the upgraded version of the Skeleton. Everyone except the Crawler is undead, so they're weak to fire and BS spells. The Crawler is the most annoying, he's weak to nothing, and he can be damaged with magic or physical attacks, but I would suggest just hack away at him as soon as possible to get rid of him quickly. We give the copper armlet to the white mage because she actually benefits from it. At this early stage, the monk is better with any defense equipment. The Pisco demons just hit very hard. They look like mages, but they don't actually use magic. At this early stage, none of your characters can survive too many battles with these guys. They just take way too much damage, so kill them quickly. This party is good at physical attacks, so I won't even need any magic. But these Pisco demons, they have very high magic defense, and they're resistant to fire and ice. So if you have a party of magi, you may try a couple of Thundera spellcasts with 2 characters, or 1 Thundera and some physical attacks to dispatch them quickly. Astos asked us for the crown, so we'll need it to progress the plot, but we have to get out of Marsh Cave first. If you come to the Marsh Cave in an early level and survive it somehow, then this might be the time to go back to the inn before facing Astos. Since I'm fully prepared, I can deal with him in the same trip. Astos can fire some attack magic, but he typically hits you with the death and status effect spells. You don't have any protection against death and there's a chance it won't work on your characters, but typically someone dies. This main party of mine is just too strong and this time, no one died. Null Shock and Null Blaze are good just in case he hits you with a Fira or Bandera. You have no protection against a Blazera at this point, but we'll get Null Frost eventually, pretty soon. Typical strategy I will use with this party and others for boss fights is give temper to your fighting classes, particularly the monk. I only give the warrior a temper because I wanted to be ready just in case a death spell worked against my monk. Now that we have the Crystal Eye, we can give it to Matoya, since she needs this for her profession. If I recall from the original story, Astos stole this from her, that's why he has it. Matoya rewards us with a Jolt Tonic, which can wake anyone up from deep sleep, like the Elf Prince. After we wake him up with the Jolt Tonic, the Elf Prince gives us, the Light Warriors, the Mystic Key. And now it's looting time. Now we can get all those goodies that were locked in treasure chests or behind doors that only the Mystic Key could open. We'll have to revisit some places, but there we go. The Mithril Hammer belongs to the White Mage, and will remain her best weapon for a very long time. The Bronze Gloves go to the Warrior, as he's the only one who can equip them. The only one who can wear most of the heavy armor in the game, like Bronze Gloves, is the Ninja. So if you have a Thief in your party, he's the only one that could get Bronze Gloves much later, but by then you'll have far better equipment. The Ghast are actually an enemy we face later. Earlier Final Fantasy games, especially the first and second one, are known for this, putting a few later enemies in earlier maps just to test whether or not you're fully prepared, also to allow some exploits, and I think maybe it was even on accident, but it happens repeatedly in the first Final Fantasy and the second one. So sometimes what happens is you're thinking, okay, I'm over leveled and my party, nothing can touch my party, and you're just moseying along and you weren't fully prepared, so you're a little careless in your preparation, and then you face an enemy like this and you're done. Your whole game is over. Grey Ooze is weak to ice. I forgot whether he's weak to fire or thunder. It might be thunder, but you have to check the bestiary or whatever. You typically only face him alone or with an assortment of green slimes, black widows, or tarantulas. Sometimes you can get a pack of 2 or 3. He hits very hard, but with my main party I just beat him. If you have a mage faring party, you may try combinations of Blizzard perhaps, otherwise you can try Thundera. Might help kill him faster if you face a pack of them. If he's in individual amounts and you've got enough fighters to at least take on him, and then you save the fires for maybe the green slime or whatever. The Mystic Key doors of the Marsh Cave, they're at the lowest row of rooms in, I think it was B3 of the Marsh Cave. That's where we fought the wizards and got the crown and everything. So behind most of these is treasure and semi-boss fights. The first one you face is a pack of anacondas. These guys hit hard and can even poison you, and their specialty is critical hits. Just hack at them, that's all you can do. And then once you beat them, you get the silver armlet. This should also go to the White Mage in this party, because she benefits most from it. At certain levels, the monk's unequipped defense increases. He'll soon be at a higher defense, but for now, we place him in the back row, since he technically has the lowest defense. You face the Pisco demons again, but they should be considered a mini-boss because they're not guarding a key item anymore. They are one of the enemies that are guarding the chests in these rooms. The scorpions, who actually look like lobsters to me, are another enemy from later in the game, but you can face packs of 2 or 3 of them here. They are fairly rare, but you do face them. You can hit them with a powerful AoE magic like Thundera, if you have it, like with a black mage, red mage. But they're not really weak to any element, just the magic has to be powerful to do some damage to them. They hit hard for multiple hits, and they can poison you with each hit. I would just gang up on one and dispatch them as soon as possible with this type of party. You can face packs of up to 5 or 6 werewolves here. They're elusive as all wolves are, and they can poison you. They do have less HP than werewolves, but are still considered an upgrade of the wolf type. Just hack away and use your antidotes as necessary after the battle. The bottom treasure chest hosts the Falchion, hope I'm pronouncing that right, which is at the same caliber as a broadsword. This chest is guarded by the wraiths. The left and right chests are guarded by the mummies. The right chest hosts the steel gloves, suitable only for the warrior, and the left chest hosts the power staff, which is not really suitable for any class, but sells for a lot of money. Both the mummies and the wraiths are undead, so they're weak to fire and dia. They also have very high defense and attack, with the mummies being the stronger and the wraiths being the more elusive. The wraiths also have higher HP than the mummies. The wraiths can paralyze you with their physical attacks, and the mummies can put you to sleep with theirs. You get packs of 3 to 6 of the wraiths and packs of 2 to 5 of the mummies. With my main party, for 2 to 3 mummies, I hit them with the dia spell and the physical attacks. Good combination works. For packs of 4 and 5, I launch a Dara and finish them off with physical attacks if needed, but I think at this point the Dara was more than enough from the white mage. It's the same for the wraiths, except with them I typically conserve the fire dia combination until I get a pack of 5 or 6. So that's when I hit him with the Dara, and if the Dara is not enough, probably hit him with the Fira. If you've got red mage, black mage, then of course you use them accordingly. This is an excellent place for leveling up, especially if you have a mage party. This party has a decent amount of magic, so we do use it, especially for undead, and we level up a little bit. But this was most beneficial for my mage party, which I'll talk about later. From the Cornelia Castle treasure house, notably we get the saber, which is only really suitable for the thief or black mage. With the thief, sometimes you use it for more attack power perhaps than the scimitar, his other weapon. So scimitar gives him more accuracy, this one gives him more attack power. So at this very early stage, it's only really suitable for the thief or the black mage. The mithril knife is really for the black mage, and this is a big weapon upgrade for him. And then there's a nitro powder, of course, which is a key item we will use very shortly to advance the plot. I really love this Chaos Shrine music. It's one of my favorite tunes from all video games. In the Chaos Shrine, there are only 2 Mystic Key doors that can be opened, and they both hold some good swords for this early stage of the game. Rune and Warbuster. These chests are in the bottom and top right rooms of the temple, and they're guarded by 2 or 3 packs of gargoyles. We've already faced them plenty of times, so this is not a difficult battle. We're back at Mount Duergar, Dwelling of the Dwarves, in Final Fantasy 1. We now have the Mystic Key to unlock the door with some loot. It's a big door, big treasure house that the dwarves are guarding. Notably, we get the Great Helmet, which is only suitable for your warrior class. The Worm Killer, which is good for any of the weapon wielding classes, particularly the warrior, thief, or red mage. And the Mithril Mail, which is an armor upgrade for your red mage. And after we get the goodies from the treasure chest, we have to give the Nitro Powder we got from the Cornelia Castle treasure house to the dwarf just outside this treasure room, who will open up a sea route to Melmond, so we can progress the plot. Now I'm going to speed through the second party and third party playthroughs, skipping all unnecessary content, just showing how well these parties handle the same journey. If you only wanted to see just the walkthrough one time and you don't really care to see the other parties and their playthrough, you don't have to keep watching because this is not going to be any new content, it's just going to be the same exact progress up until this point. Just because I love the different combinations is one of the reasons why I really enjoy playing and replaying Final Fantasy 1. The slow spell was a mistake to get with the Black Mage, since the dark does what slow can do, and even keeps the blindness status effect, so the enemy misses more. You can either use this dark slow against enemies like this, or just hit them with a Thundera to help your fighting classes bring them down. The Blizzard spell with the Black Mage can also work here, to assist your fighting classes in finishing these combos. We use the same sleep spell support from the Black Mage against enemies like the werewolves, who are annoying to kill and even poison your party repeatedly, so sleep spell can really help. It was best to hit them with a Thundera, with both the Red Mage and the Black Mage. This would have dispatched them the fastest, since they are resistant to fire and ice and they have very high magic defense. Actually, I think a Thundera from the Black Mage at this point, by himself, would have been more than enough to kill them, but yeah, I had forgotten at this point what they were resistant to, but Thundera is the way to go with these Pisco Demons, if you're going to use magic to either support or by itself wipe them out. This combination is best handled with a Fira from the Black Mage, coupled with a Dia from the White Mage, since the Blood Bones has very high magic defense, but with the Black Mage as leveled as he is, a Fira might just be enough. It was probably a good idea to try the hold spell with the Black Mage in the first round, but hey, you can never be perfect, you always make some mistakes. The whole reason I got the hold spell and these kind of status effects with the Black Mage, because for that third slot, the other spell may not have been as useful, and the hold spell can actually even work on bosses, especially with his high intelligence. So after my warrior was killed with a death spell, I had to stack the temper spells on my red mage, since my only real fighting class after the warrior in this party. But it was enough to overcome Astos. The silver armlet gives the white mage a significant upgrade in defense, and she is more vital for the party's survival, especially against stronger opponents and boss fights. So black mage is not as essential, that's why we'll prefer to give the better armor to her. And of course we'll get the silver armlet pretty soon for the black mage as well. Because I have the white and black mages in this party, I can dispatch the mummies and raids with a Diera or a Fura. For the larger packs, this was the way to go. And for smaller packs, Dia, fire, and physical attacks, just to conserve magic, so I can be here longer and just keep leveling up. Because this place was awesome for that. These fights are perfect for a party favoring magic spells, and throughout the game, any kind of strong undead or large packs of enemies that can be dispatched with an AoE spell, especially with the undead as fire or Dia, ideal place for a party like this. I go to Provoca to rectify some early magic mistakes, or where I just change my mind about what is going to be more effective as the game progresses. You can always do that with any of your spells. If a spell was useful for a certain portion of the game and then now you want to change it, well, you can forget the spells and buy new ones in their place, with no penalty except the cost of the spell. You just have to pay that cost again, that's it. And this was actually possible even in the first Final Fantasy, not just in the remake. But of course you can discard spells and replace them. So I came here to replace my slow spell with the dark spell. So I wanted the dark one for my black mage. I think that's going to be a little more useful, where the black mage can give support to my fighters. Now that we're in Melmond, we can pick up a silver armlet for our black mage to give him some defense and help him survive, as he will always have the lowest HP out of any of our Final Fantasy characters. We can also get the Hilera and Diego spells with the white mage. Hilera is vital for the tough boss fights where enemies hit you with powerful AoE magic, turn after turn. And Diaga is even more effective than the previous ones, more powerful against the undead. You can decide between the Life and Curaga spell, because in the PSP version of the game we get the Phoenix Downs, and the Life spell is not as essential. It can still be useful, but I prefer to get the Curaga. Because when one individual character is targeted, you want to get the Cura or Curaga spell more useful, and when your entire party is being attacked, then you can use the Hilera. So you have your multiple options for how you want to heal your party. The black mage can get the Firaga and Scourge spells. The Firaga is an incredibly powerful fire magic, and of course with black mage always having the highest intelligence, it's going to be your most powerful AoE magic at this point of the game. And of course you get the Scourge. Scourge is your first instant death spell, poisoning your enemies to death. Those that are not resistant to it, of course, or immune. And of course you can decide between the Slowra or the Teleport spell. Slowra can be useful for boss fights, and Teleport warps your party back one floor in dungeons. I honestly never found Teleport useful, because where the dungeon floors setup gets complicated, it's not always clear which floor you get warped to, so I get a little confused with it. And so I prefer like the exit spell, that's important, but that will come later, and it is only for the white mage and the red wizard, since it's a white magic spell. Just as with every other type of enemy this party faces, you want to just distribute your attacks based on the level of damage each character type can handle. With the remake, since accuracy, agility, and other ratings work better, you can utilize the strengths of each fighter type and even get the necessary magic from your range. Almost throughout the game, based on attack power, I think mostly the warrior will have the highest, almost always. Thief will always have the most accuracy, either have the most hits or second most hits after the black belt. That's only because unarmed is always twice. In terms of accuracy, the monk, he's up there, but he's not always going to have the highest accuracy. He's going to have maybe second or third, largest accuracy, maybe in fourth. But because it's 2 hits, he's always going to be hitting the most hits, almost always. The only one that can compete with him is usually the thief. In terms of how these fighters attack, the remake really does help each fighter get the best out of what that character type is capable of. And so you learn how to use them, and you learn which type of weapons they're best with and how to target certain enemies. Enemies with the highest defense, you're going to have to hit them with your person with the highest attack power for that part of the game, which will usually be the warrior, but you can also use a monk that way as well. Thief less, then Reg Mage. And Thief just gets better and better throughout the game. He gains the most from class change. You need not bother with the null element spells for this party, since you have multiple fighters. Even if one gets killed, you can easily stack temper spells on another one. I always default to my monk, since he will typically deliver the most hits. But sometimes I'll even spread the tempers around, just in case one of my fighters die. Just kind of anticipating the death spell, especially with Astos. The silver armlet for this party should definitely go to the thief, and because of his high agility and evasion, you can now even move him to the second row. In the long run, of course, once he becomes a ninja, he'll always be in the second row. But even now, he's round about the same amount of defense that the red mage has. But even in certain cases up until class change, even when the red mage has a little bit more defense than him, I'm still going to keep him in the second row, the thief, because the thief has higher evasion. That also helps in actually defending. With this party for undead, you want to launch a Fira with your red mage and have your fighters clean up. In this bout, I got very unlucky and all of my fighters were paralyzed except the monk, because I think he's more resistant to side effects than the other classes. But in any case, after you defeat them, the Falcione is perfect for the thief, since he can't equip the broadsword. But it doesn't really matter because very soon we're going to get much better weapons like the rune and the Wurbuster, but it's okay. Still, for now, give it to the thief. And while this place was a great place to level up for my other parties because they had an arsenal against the undead, for this party, just not the right place. They're very weak against the undead. We'll later use the giants and other similar enemies to level up loads in the next episode. That's where this party shines. And there are certain times where every type of party shines, and other situations which they don't handle very well. And this is one of those situations where you just want to avoid and get out of, because this party does not excel against the undead. Give the Rune Blade to the Thief, the Worm Buster to the Red Mage, and the Worm Killer to the Warrior. That's all for this video. We made it to Melmond, and actually the next episode we're going to start all the preparation for the Earth Cave. We're going to go to the Earth Cave a little bit. I forgot exactly what the cave is called, but you know, that's where you get the Earth Crystal to defeat Lich and everything. All that's going to be in the next episode. I'm actually not going to talk with all the townspeople in Melmond because that's all scheduled for the next episode. I mean, this is where we actually start as the Light Warriors, shining all the orbs and everything. I think they were called orbs in the previous one, but whatever. Orbs, crystals, we're the Light Warriors, and this is where we actually do our duty. All of this has just been preparation to get to this point. And then we still got preparation to do. Still got to be able to afford all of the level 5 spells. So will be a lot of leveling up. But I do some of that leveling up just like I did with the Marsh Cave. Actually go into the cave a little bit. Because here the cave is not as far away from the inn as it was with the Marsh Cave. So go to the inn, back and forth. Use it to level up. Get completely prepared. Get everyone the right equipment. The knight's armor is very expensive for the warrior. In this remake, it's a lot easier in terms of money and affordability, but in the previous version, it was very difficult to afford everything, especially if you have 2 warriors to buy each of them a knight's armor. It was a big pain because you used to get less from each fight, less gold and less skill, and everything was more expensive as well. And this one, I think it's, in some cases, it's the same price, but again, it's still more expensive because you got less gold in the original version. Boss fights they made harder. The Lich boss fight is a lot harder than it ever was in the original version. So I think they did this because you have less leveling up, more actual fun and stuff like that. So we'll be going through all of that in the next episode and actually getting started. But for now, this is it for this episode. I hope you liked it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give me a like, share, subscribe. This is Niche Gaming, signing off.